Okay, good morning and welcome everyone to our Carroll County delegation meeting. The first order of business, the House delegation is electing a new chair this morning. So I'm going to turn it over to Delegate Shoemaker to conduct that part of the proceedings.
Well, before we do that, we should probably do the pledge.
That's true.
Yeah. And I just happen to have a flag handy. So there we go.
Okay.
All right.
That'll work.
Let's stand for the pledge.
Do that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
States of
America
America,
and to the republic for
Republic
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands, one
one
nation,
nation, under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Here.
All right. Thank you.
Well done, Haven.
Thank you. I had plenty of coffee this morning, so I could remember to recite the pledge. I guess before we get to the election, I guess we have minutes to approve. So a motion on approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Election of, we'll talk about the House delegation first. Election of House delegation chairs and co-chairs.
Madam, Mr. Chair.
Well, thanks.
Madam, Mr., whatever, you don't have your preferred pronoun up, so I didn't know.
Delegate Krebs.
Thank you. Before we start on the election, I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, we got the capital budget books last night, and I just had a quick glance to go through them. And just so everyone has a frame of reference for the rest of some of the stuff that's on this meeting agenda, I just want to mention how hard the delegation has worked in the interim, not just for COVID and everything related, but also to get money into the governor's capital budget. And it was a full out press with everybody in the delegation, but I just want to run through very quickly the ones that I saw, and this doesn't mean it's everything. And that way, when we're talking about these other initiatives, we can have it on our radar screen. So right now, from what I've just quickly looked at last night, we got money for Manchester Christmas Tree Park Playground, Sykesville Linear Park Natural Play and Learning of Area Improvements, Tawnytown High School Skateboard Rehabilitation, Westminster Municipal Pool, Inclusive Spray Ground Development, District Court Modernization Elevators, Springfield Hospital Center Medical Surgery Building HVAC, Springfield Hospital Center Surgery Building Replacement of the roof, Springfield Hospital Center Nurses Home Replacement Roof, which means they're investing in Springfield Hospital, which is good. It means they're not going to close it. And Carroll, our Maryland State Police Barrack G, replacing some HVAC systems. So that is not the exciting parts, but the other pieces that we've been waiting for. Let's see here, find it.
Susan, what was the Sykesville? What was the site? I was trying to write it down fast.
It's in your capital budget book on page.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still at home.
Sykesville Linear Park Natural Play, and these go through community parks and playground project lists.
Gotcha.
Often which we write letters of support for. The big one that I am really proud of, and Commissioner Rothstein, I've been working on this clandestinely for 3 years. Money for the new Veteran State Home at Sykesville on the campus of Springfield Hospital, 128 bed skilled nursing facility to serve Maryland's veterans. It'll only be the second one in the state of Maryland. $63 million of state money is in the budget this year to move that forward, and it's 65% of, 65% federal funds, 35% state funds, and the delegation. We're so pleased to have. This is definitely moving forward, and we've worked hard on that for a number of years. So thank the group effort for that project. McDaniel College, there's $1.3 million in there for their requests. Let's see. And then the part that I think we might affect our work today is the American Legion down in Sykesville. I know Senator Hester's interested in this as well. $100,000 for that. $3 million for Carroll County new law enforcement building. $400,000 for Carroll County Ag Center, Shipley Arena renovations, Carroll County Farm Museum, $250,000, City of Westminster Historic Clock Tower renovation, $200,000, the Friends of Cascade Lake Recreation Adventure Park, 150,000. So again, it's not everything, but it's what I could just see very quickly. And I just mentioned that because some of that is in our bond bills. And a prelude, we've worked hard over the year to get all these things in the budget, and there's going to be a lot of heavy lifting to make sure it all stays in the budget. So the whole delegation is going to need to keep their eyes open for these things. And because of that, I wanted to thank Delegate Shoemaker for being our leader for the last, I forget how many years, but now he is moving
Four, I
on to
think.
other, how many?
4, I believe.
He's counting down, right?
Yeah.
So he's moving on to, I'd say, I don't know if it's better, but other things in our and other responsibilities within our House caucus here. He's going to be our minority whip in the House Republican caucus. So he's going to have a lot on his plate. So given that, I think it's time for him to pass the baton, and I think he agrees. And I wanted to nominate Delegate Rose as our Carroll County House Delegation Chair. She's certainly up to this, and I will help mentor her through. But we have a lot to keep in the budget and a lot of issues to get through. So I want to nominate Delegate Rose to be our next Carroll County House Delegation Chair.
Second.
Thank you, I think.
All right, are there any other nominations?
I move the nominations be closed.
Is there a second to the motion to close?
Second.
All right, all in favor of the motion to close?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes,
Haven't voted on that. All in favor of Delegate Rose as chair of the Carroll delegation? Aye.
Aye.
Any
Very good.
opposed? All right, well, congratulations, Delegate Rose.
landslide.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I have very capable and wonderful shoes to try to fill, and I will do my best. And I will probably ask lots of questions, but thank you to Sue for serving prior and to Haven. And I look forward to working with everybody as we have been all along. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, the meeting's yours, Delegate
Oh.
Rose.
And I think Molly's going to thank you too, right, Molly? One of those things she's got to worry about.
Yeah, big
Yes.
thank you, big thank you. Congrats, Delegate Rose.
Thank you, Molly. And you will be called on to help Suzanne figure some of this stuff out too. So
It's a great thing we're still office neighbors.
exactly. Well, thanks, everybody. I know the senators have to get to session at some point, so we'll move along. So we have our agenda. Everybody should have received the agenda. Item number 1, the Board of Commissioners compensation. We're going to flip that to item number 3. So I think we'll go ahead and move, if you don't mind, to the Carroll County Board of Education compensation. And everybody should have received from Molly the bill for that. So basically, we've already discussed this. I'll just open it to questions. Does anybody have any questions or concerns with increasing the Board of Education compensation?
Just want to mention, there's one other thing in there that we've just adjusted, and it makes it clear that we want the individual to only serve, that may not serve more than one term as a student representative. And that's just a clarification of something that we never really made clear before in the past.
And I think that's a good clarification because we want as many students as possible to, have that opportunity to serve and learn. So I think that was a great clarification. Is there a motion to
So I move that we, the Carroll County Board of Education member compensation and student representative legislation before you.
Second.
any other discussion? All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimous.
Delegate Rose, I'm going to do an abstention on that one, if you don't mind.
Okay. And I guess Molly, are you taking the notes today? Or Meg?
Yeah, Meg is doing. we've
Okay,
done.
thank you. Okay, so then we can now move on to, I guess we'll just follow down the line. The state's attorney, prohibition on private practice. Everybody should have that draft as well.
Just
And
for the record, Delegate Rose, I'm recusing myself from discussion or vote on that particular proposal.
absolutely. And I think everybody should have received Haven's written correspondence affirming that as well. So this up for questions, discussion.
Move favorable.
Second,
Senator Hester has a question.
I did. Sorry, I wasn't sure whether we should just jump in or try to raise our little yellow hand. Just two questions. One, do we have any written testimony on this bill?
I don't believe I have any written testimony on the bill.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I
personally.
wasn't missing something. And the second thing, I discussed this with Senator Reedy the other day. I mean, this is absolutely, good policy. The timing's a bit awkward. And so it may get flagged when it comes to EHEA, just because we're making we're voting on legislation that influences election in an election year. And I've been, kind of tapped on the shoulder about a couple other bills that do the same thing. Was there any consideration given to the date of when the bill becomes effective?
Basically, from my perspective, it was brought to our attention in late October before our November hearing, which I know you attended to, basically, in our view, we were unaware that it wasn't current law, and 21 other counties have taken the liberty of adding that extra provision. So, the legislation really would just update the law to really what codify existing practice. The Carroll County State's Attorney already doesn't engage in private practice, and the assistant state's attorneys are not allowed to engage in private practice. And so the law says full time, but because these 21 other counties have added this, seemed appropriate to make it clear in law. From my perspective, it's state's attorneys are top prosecutor and manages, dozens of attorneys and administrative staff, and they're paid now the same salary as a district court judge, it's $161,000. So it's really a 24/7 on-call job. So the legislation, from my perspective, is just making it clear that that's the expectation of the job. There was as far as testimony, there was somebody that came to the hearing that offered testimony. That's about the only testimony we received on it was at that hearing. So,
Okay.
I think I see.
Yeah, Delegate Krebs and then Delegate Huff
Yeah.
are in line.
I just want to give a little history. When we raised the state's attorney's salary a number of years ago, and I was here, we had a low salary and we purposely upped it to make it more, this is a full-time salary. This is the expectation. And I personally had no idea that we needed to have that in there. It was just always the expectation. And I was sort of shocked that we didn't have it in there. I think us in Garrett County and also Baltimore City, and obviously look at what's going on in Baltimore City. If they had that in there, maybe they wouldn't be in trouble right now with having outside businesses. But at the hearing, I was, person that was opposed to it. I left before we had a chance to question whether it was going to be an issue. And we never have had anything in writing, and we didn't have the opportunity to ask those questions of the person because they left. But I'm just telling you, from my perspective, when we up these salaries a lot to district court salaries, that was our expectation. We had no idea. And it's always been the practice in Carroll County. Years ago, when we first had state's attorneys, they were only part-time because they made like $30,000 a year. And over time, it's become a full-time job. And I can tell you, it's a very important job in Carroll County, not just the work that they do being the state's attorney, but all like Brian DeLeonardo, the work that he did with the drug opioid stuff and the extra stuff. It was more than I don't want to talk Haven out of this, but it's more than a full-time job. And that's why we're paying them full-time. And that was the expectation when we raised the salaries. And it's our fault years ago for not realizing that needed to be updated. So I was surprised. I think it's the right policy, and I think it's the right time now that we know about it.
Senator Huff.
Yeah, it strikes me that the timing actually is correct, because you would either done it last year or this year is when you do all your raises. And also if you had someone under the misconception that they could have been a part-time state's attorney, I think it's a good idea that you clarify that now before the election. So I actually think you don't want to go in the middle of a term and start changing the terms of a jobs, or you can't change the salary. So I think this would be the time to make this change. And I would just agree with everything Delegate Krebs has said. I can't imagine, with the exception of Baltimore City, where she assumed it could be a part-time job when it is not. These are not part-time jobs. Our charter in Frederick County actually, I know this, I'm obviously running for county executive, prohibits me from having any outside income. So these jobs, register will, clerk, state's attorney, but especially when you talk about state's attorney and sheriff, these are public safety positions. So these are obviously full-time jobs. And in Carroll County and Frederick County, we have done a lot to compensate them, realizing they are attorneys and deserving of good pay. So to me, this is just a no-brainer. I can't imagine anyone thinking they're going to be a part-time state's attorney or part-time sheriff. I mean, that's just absurd.
Thank you, Senator Huff. Anyone else have any? Delegate Pippy?
Yeah, kind of just piggybacking on what Senator Huff said. I mean, because in Frederick, as he mentioned, for our county executive position, you can't do anything outside of that. I mean, you can't, there's no income. And so I saw when I looked at the language of this, that it was much more narrow and that it only applied to the private practice of law, which I thought was appropriate because, again, you don't want any conflicts of interest. You want their focus to be on the full-time position. And it was much more narrow than I've seen in some other language, which would prohibit any outside employment. So for example, if somebody had like a business unrelated to the practice of law, this doesn't impede that. It just, again, only narrow to the outside practice of law, which is basically in line with the majority of all the other districts in the state. So I thought it was good policy when I read it. So just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Delegate. Senator Hester?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify that I support the legislation. I just wanted to flag that, these process points and that this could come up in EHE, and the conversation we've just had will help me defend the bill in EHE. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to move this bill forward? Senator Hester? Is that? Okay. Did someone make a motion? I'm sorry.
I did. Move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
All right. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Thank you all. So that motion passes. That bill goes forward. Next on the agenda, are we ready to circle back then to number 1?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the Board of Commissioners compensation, Delegate Krebs, would you mind kind of giving us the sort of the background and overview of what we're trying to correct here?
Yeah, thank you. A number of years ago, it was brought to our attention that, and this does not have anything to do with this Board of Commissioners or even the past Board of Commissioners, but several boards of commissioners ago, we had a situation where, unbeknownst to us, they had somehow given themselves other benefits that were compensation. And as we know, for commissioner forms of government, it has to go through the legislature, anything to do with compensation. So whether it's salary, we look at it every 4 years, just like our compensation commission for us. There's actually a commission that recommends what we do with insurance and life insurance and health insurance and retirement and expenses and per diems and all of those things and salaries. And it comes out every 4 years for elected officials. And we either, they make the recommendations, we can't lower it, but it goes into effect if we don't act on it to lower it. And I won't get into all what we do, but there's a process. We've never really had a process and we do this for boards of education. It's up to us to change it for boards of education, for the sheriffs, for the state's attorney, for the orphans court. What else am I missing? Clerk of the court. I'm not sure if it's clerk of court anymore. And then the county commissioners, and they're the things we control. And the county commissioners, since we're a commissioner form of government, we don't have a charter and it's up to the legislature. So we have not really reviewed the benefits and salaries of the commissioners, and they haven't been raised in 20 years. So it's time to look at it. and they've never requested it either. So we had suggested a few years ago that they put a commission together and give some recommendations. That was not forthcoming. I didn't see that there was an interest, but we felt that we needed to update the rules. So it came to our attention that there were some discrepancies of past boards of commissioners voting to give themselves things that were compensation, and we did not believe that was appropriate. I did not believe it was appropriate. So I spent a lot of time reading the code, talking to bill drafters to make sure it's very clear that this is what they're entitled to, and this is what they're not. They can't just say, I want a per diem and vote themselves a per diem. That was done in the past. And that and health insurance in the past, a former board of commissioners, and again, this goes back several years, former board of commissioners changed the retiree health insurance for their employees, but they left themselves in the old, more lucrative plan ongoing. And we did not think that, I don't think that's appropriate. I think that they should have the same benefits as their employees and not be on a separate track. So anyway, so we've been talking about this for several years. I've been talking with Commissioner Rothstein about the intentions of putting this bill forth. We finally got the language drafted back to us, I guess, a few weeks ago. I shared it with Commissioner Rothstein. So the bill basically says, and there's several parts to it. The first part of it says the commissioners get the same benefits that their employees or retirees get, the same scale, the same everything. So it would be the same. And then expenses are the same thing, whatever the employees get for expenses, travel, whatever, the same, but no more. They can't just give themselves a per diem. And then the third piece, which can be separated if you want, is to raise the salary up to $50,000 from $45,000. As I said, it has not been raised for, I believe, 20 years. So that's what the bill does. It's a little lengthy the way it is written because there's different parts of the code that have to be addressed. So that is what is in this bill that's in front of you, is to make it the same. Again, all the compensation includes benefits and expenses. And we want to make it very clear to the staff that this is what they're entitled to for 4 years. And every 4 years we can update it and revisit it like we do with our own compensation commission.
Thank you, Delegate Krebs, for the overview. Opening this up to additional comments, questions. I know we have some folks here from the county. I think.
Do we want to have, I think Mike Fowler's on.
Okay.
Mike, would you like to, I know you wanted to give some commentary and on it and give some background.
Yeah, I think I'll just pass it right over to Commissioner Rothstein. I know Tim Burke, the county attorney, is on as well. He can provide some of the background from the county's perspective as well.
Mike, I appreciate it. And Madam Chair, congratulations. Senator Reedy, Senator Huff, Senator Hester. Good morning, and all our delegates. I appreciate this opportunity to have a bit of a conversation with you regarding this. And and also, before I forget, thank you so much, Delegate Krebs, for sharing about the capital budget, because I will be sharing a lot of that, or all of that, what you shared in open session. That's awesome. And in the Army, we say one team, one fight, and this definitely shows that. So really greatly appreciate it. And also understanding the increase in salary to $50,000 from $45,000. Again, we definitely appreciate that. As you stated, it has not been raised in quite some time. Regarding the pension and benefits, the question in mind is, why are we doing what we're doing now? And the authority, the responsibility and authority that was given to us by code in 1976, which is Employees Income Deferment Plan. And it allows Carroll County, and I'm just going to read this, may establish and maintain a general system of pensions and retirement and group insurance for the benefit and advantage of its officers and employees as authorized by the code, by Article 25 of the code. And it is implied, because it's not specified by officers, that the officers are the county commissioners. So therefore, it's allowing us to design our pension and benefits. When it came up to question of, are we taking advantage of a system? In 2018, we redesigned the pension and benefits on the criteria. And the criteria was adjusting those eligible for these benefits to be 62 years of age. Before, I don't think there was an age before that. And now the county has put in Medicare Advantage at age 65. So really, we're only talking 3 years of eligibility for those commissioners. And that's not for their families if they, decide to buy into the health care, but it is for the commissioners specifically. And let's see, it's one of those things. I don't want to say this is additional legislation that you're considering, and is it state overreach for the county? I'm all about minimizing any legislation and allowing the county to run county operations. There's no benefit, just as you mentioned with, the state's attorney's responsibilities. This may be a part-time role, but as you know, that our commitment as commissioners doesn't stop on Tuesdays and Thursdays or part-time. It's a 24/7 commitment, just as you are a 24/7 commitment. So it goes down to, again, why do this now? Is this potentially a state overreaching actions to what the county operations are conducting? And is it punitive by taking away something that was put in place in 1976? And we've adjusted the criteria so we don't allow folks to fall through some loopholes which have occurred between that 1976 law or code, 1976 code, and today. There have been a handful, and we don't want that, just as we try to be as objective as we can in all the things we do. So that's, what I just want to open with. And if there are any questions on that, or if Mike or Tim, if I missed something, please chime in.
And I see that Senator Reedy has his hand up.
Yeah, let me ask, and Commissioner Rothstein, thank you for being here. And can I ask, and it might be a question for Tim Burke or for any of you, this ambiguity about what an officer is the first question I have. What we're trying to do, when I looked into this, because Delegate Krebs had worked a lot of these ideas several months ago, I think the bill has gotten rounded into form over the course of several weeks and months. I questioned first, well, what do the other commissioner form of government counties do? And all of them that I have found do specify in state law what their benefits are. And it's just they get whatever county employees get, which I'm fine with, by the way. I mean, you're a county employee. That's no problem from my perspective. We were concerned about the additional health benefit, and we could get into that maybe later, but I know there's been some changes made. But my question is it, I think we have advice that it's not clear that that's who the officers are, that it's like, could be other employees or whatever. So I don't know if Tim could speak to that or.
Well, yeah, and I think Tim can, but, just as before I shared to Tim, it's one of those things, if it's specified, specified. If not, you have to make an assumption and you then create an implied, definition of it. I think that may be something important to further define and put that into code by not taking out the officers and making that defined as officers. But Tim, do you have an opinion on that?
Can you hear me?
We can.
I hear you, Tim. Yeah.
Sorry, my video is not working. When you look at the other commissioner counties, they specifically limit the benefits to employees. No reference to officers. When you look at this code provision that the legislation that Commissioner Rothstein referred to, they specifically refer to officers and employees. If the commissioners are not the officers, we don't know who are. I mean, cabinet members or employees. Who are the officers if not the commissioners is the question we have. And why did the other commissioner counties only refer to employees and not officers?
When you say the only other commissioner counties only refer to employees, you're talking about in the section of the code where, say, the Calvert County commissioners have a section, it only covers employees, or?
The ones I found, yes, when they refer to the employees' income deferment plans and pensions and retirement, they specifically refer to employees.
But so then to follow up, and I'm not trying to cut you off, I just know we're short on time and this is an important issue, but so they, in the section of code that deals with, again, just for example, Calvert County Commissioners compensation, what I hear is that what it seems to me is that it's saying they don't get anything else. They get their salary, or it allows them to get the same thing employees get. And there's no mention of them being able to go and set additional benefits beyond that, public hearing or no public. I mean, am I doing that right? Or?
You're right. There's no mention of officers at all. If the officers are the county commissioners, that there's no reference to them at all in the other counties, and therefore you're right, they don't get anything.
So I think our question here, and then I'll turn it over to somebody else, but our question here is, we had a situation, and it was not the current Board of Commissioners or the previous Board of Commissioners or even the previous Board of Commissioners. It went way back, where there was a very lucrative retirement health benefit that was set up, possibly with good intentions, but no public scrutiny. And for years went on where somebody could have been a county commissioner when they were 38 and served 8 years and then retired. And then for the rest of their life, then their family could get this more lucrative benefit. Now that has been changed. It's been adjusted. But I think that was part of what was trying to make it more clear in law here, that the future boards of commissioners don't get any retirement things that are not what employees would get with the same level of service. And then on the pension, I think it was just wanting to codify that you guys have established the pension same as the state, as the county employees. So I think that's, Delegate Krebs is the one who's put this bill together. I kind of thought that was the main intention of that part of the bill. I mean, and I'll leave it at that. I don't know if you can give comment on that. But that's the concern I think we've been trying to get at previously. And there was a change made, but not sure it necessarily went as far as we would have thought it was going to go. So I'll just leave it at that.
And Senator Reedy, before 2018, it was for a county commissioner 1 term, and there was no age requirement, as you shared. And they paid the same amount as current employees, excuse me. After 2018, the adjustment was 62 years of age and also 2 terms. And the intent there is, again, to lessen the opportunity for those loopholes, or lessen the opportunity for folks taking advantage of a system. And in addition to that, most recently, we moved to the Medicare Advantage by age 65. So really, again, you're talking a small window for the commissioner. Now, it's not for the family, because if, my wife's
that's a good change.
4 years younger, she has it longer, than I would, but that's kind of where we stand.
Okay.
And I just want to bring up the one last thing. All we're doing is, I think, codifying in commissioner forms of government. You all are the administrative branch and the legislative branch. And that is why you have to come to the delegation, because there's no other way to do it. In charter governments, it's in their charter how this is done, but in nowhere, I don't think anywhere in the state should elected officials be able to unilaterally determine their compensation. And that's why for every other group, there's a process. And we appreciate the document that you gave us, your policy, HR, whatever it was. But the bottom line is that needs to be codified in state law, what it should be. And a new group of commissioners should not be able to change it. And your staff should know that you can't change it. It's got to come through the legislative process of the state for commissioner forms of government. And every other county, that's how it's done, whether you're an officer or not. We just assume that the officers would get the same as their employees. And that's all we're asking, is to treat the elected officials in similar circumstance, and make it very clear to future boards of commissioners, and make it very clear to the staff that has to implement this. Because right now you're their boss, and you're the legislative group and the administrative group. So if the commissioners vote on something and say, hey, we want a $50 per day per diem, and you tell your staff to do it, you're their boss and you're the legislative branch. And that's a conflict. And that's why we separate it. And that's why it has to come through the legislature. So this makes it clear to a staff member that they can say, hey, sorry, state law says this is all you can do, and this is the process. So that's what we're trying to clarify for the future. And I try to repeat, wasn't this board, it wasn't the last board. In fact, Commissioner Shoemaker, Delegate Shoemaker, when he was commissioner, they're the board that uncovered that some of this stuff, that they were voting for these things, and it's just not the proper way to do business. And we're just trying to clarify that in state law, and we do it every 4 years, along with this increase in the salary, and hopefully, and Tim, with regard to the date, you wrote us a letter and there's an issue with the date, and you said some language was confusing. We're trying to get that date verified of what the date should be, because you guys take office on a certain day. So that's something that we've asked for a change, and we can verify that with you. And also, if the language is confusing to what our intentions are, we would certainly talk to the bill drafter if you tell us what you prefer the language to be, to get to the same end.
And Delegate Krebs, and I do apologize because I do see a couple hands up, but I just want to share. One, I appreciate that, with us having the ability to ensure that the language is correct in the bill. So definitely appreciate that. And also, I agree with everything you just shared. We should not willy-nilly, quotations, have the ability to change opportunities for our Board of Commissioners. We're not administrative, we're executive and legislative. We have an administrative process that's in place, but from the 1976 code that was put in place that allows the county commissioners, or doesn't allow it, it talks about the employee's income deferment plan and then further defines employees and officers. That's what we are basing our decisions on, that officers equals commissioners. Therefore, we're able to do this because it further defines what compensation and pension and benefits are put into the code. So I absolutely agree with everything you shared, that we should not have the ability to adjust on our own. We should stay within the guidelines and the borders of the code. And the code is established in 76. That's where we're coming from. But again, I don't want to be too lengthy, and I know you're probably tight on time, but thank you.
Senator Hester, and then Mike Fowler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It sounds like we're all in violent agreement that the policy, there shouldn't be any conflicts of interest is good. I guess one thing that occurred to me is, and I just wanted to say this, for the record, is that our commissioners, it is a hard job and it's a part-time job. As Commissioner Rothstein said, these folks work 24/7. And so I would want to make sure that, their benefits, within the law are adequate for their position. And I have to admit, I'm kind of confused between reading the letter from the commissioners and the last version of the draft about what actually the bottom line would be between the 62 and 65, like what benefits would change. And so I guess my question is, could somebody just bottom line the net impact on what happens to their health insurance between the ages of 62 and 65 if we pass this bill?
It's my understanding.
Senator Hester, all I can tell you,
I
I don't know the counties, I don't know what they give for their retirees. All it says is whatever the plan is for their retirees, whatever age it is. And I don't know if somebody from HR is on, they would be on the same scale, just like we are. It would be very similar. They would get the same benefits. If they change them for their retirees and they're in office at the time, they would get the same, whatever that scale is. I'm not intricately involved. And what they had done years ago is they put themselves on a separate path of age, and also the whole scale of what they paid for their health insurance, which I think was not, there's no other, I looked at every other commissioner, county, not another commissioner county does it this way if they give benefits, and some of them don't give benefits at all. We're not asking for that. We're just saying, we want you to be on the same scale as you put your employees on. If you ask them, I just think it's good government. So I don't know but it would not affect the way the bill is written, it would not affect anyone right now that's serving. It only affects the new people coming in. And we purposely did that so that it wouldn't affect people that had made expectations. So the people that are leaving, not affected. New people coming in, this would be the new rules next year with the new board.
Thank you, Delegate Krebs. I I always like to understand the practical implications of what a piece of legislation has on the ground. And so I agree with everything you've just said, but if we, once the points in the commissioner's letter, you said that you'd work with them on the language. And maybe if we could just also at the same time really try to understand the difference in what it will be. So if it's, it's probably not that big a difference. I'm just curious. So if we're going to take the time to revise the bill, could we just look at that question too?
And to me, the biggest thing that it's going to prevent is that that anyone in the future can change it without going through the process. That to me is the biggest takeaway from this. It's going to take what they put in place supposedly, and for the new board, it's going to be the same. And then in the future, not allow a board of commissioners to vote a per diem or to vote a difference of benefit packages from their employees. And that's the intention of this moving forward.
Okay, we have Mike Fowler. I'm looking at the time and we still have our bond bills and another bill. So Mr. Fowler, if you could go ahead and weigh in, and then maybe we can either move this or table it for further discussion, whatever the group wants to do. But I just want to be mindful of the senator's time.
Yeah, I just wanted to just raise one point for the edification of the group. We talked about some of the ambiguity, and I think one of the things that is guided the policy on the county's part is really in the powers that are granted to commission counties to form these plans. And it really just says that the governing body of a county may, number one, establish a pension plan or group insurance program for the benefit of its officers and employees. So again, the issue of officers. And number two, establish classifications and eligibility criteria for each pension plan or group insurance program. So I know you've had the discussion, you've moved beyond that, but I just wanted to mention that was one of the, I think one of the parts of the code that's lent itself to the ambiguity, or at least is based on some of the ambiguity that has guided the policy. But I think you're beyond that discussion now, but I did want to make that point.
Okay, for the good of the group and with time, is there a motion for action on this bill?
I move to move the bill with that we need to get the dates straight, and we're going to look at the language and work with Tim Burke on language, talking about the intentions of what we're trying to accomplish here. But we only have, unless we want to meet again, we only have this week to do it. But those are the two things that is tighten the language and make sure that date is right of when it's effective.
Okay. Any second on that? Senator Reedy, I can't hear you.
I seconded it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor of moving forward with the changes that Delegate Krebs and the county attorney have discussed. Senator Reedy.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know why my mute was having trouble. I support moving forward, but I think we have some things we need to straighten out. I know Delegate Krebs is alluding to that. I think I'm voting to say, let's go ahead and get the bill. We're willing to move the bill forward and put it in, but I do think we want to, I know Delegate Krebs said the same thing, but we want to be sure we get the language just right. And so I say, I know we want to keep moving, and we've got another bill that may have some questions, and then we've got the bond initiative. So I'm voting yes, but I just want to say I'm voting yes to introduce it, but we still have some amendments to work, and we want to work with the county on it as well.
Agreed.
All right, so motion on the floor is to move forward with a corrected amended bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
One abstention.
Okay. All right, thank you. For the interest of time, do we want to, everybody has the list of the bond bills.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that next.
Do we want to do them all basically as like a consent calendar as a group? Is everybody okay with doing that?
Speaking as the Senate chair, I think that's probably a good idea. Again, we're putting them in. And I think everybody, but for the record, I think everybody that has requested one, I've communicated with. But just to be sure, for the record, it doesn't mean they're getting this amount, and they know that.
Right.
It's that this is the request they have. we're going to do our best. And fortunately, we can look at some things that came in the capital budget that are helping on some other areas, so we can focus, I think, on a lot of these priorities. So yes, but I think I would move that we vote to move forward on introducing all 4 of these bond initiatives, or with our delegation's support.
Second.
Thank you. And one thing I want to mention, and I absolutely agree with all of this, but I want to ask, we don't have many on the budget committees. I think who's left in delegation? Reed, I think, is Delegate Novotny's still on the Appropriations Committee, but we need to make sure we talk to our colleagues, because we're not on the committees of jurisdiction, to make sure these things stay in the budget. And it's hard to follow. Delegate Saberta used to help us out, and Delegate Kittleman, but they're not on the committees either anymore. So make sure we on both sides talk to the committees of jurisdiction and make sure everything in this budget that we have, this is great, makes it through and doesn't get cut. We don't have a seat at the table in those 2 committees right now.
Senator Hester.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify what we actually voted on. We weren't voting on the final bill. We were voting to move it to the next step. Is that what you clarified, Senator Reedy?
On the previous.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still kind of.
That was my
confused me.
What I was trying to say is that we voted to introduce the bill, to go ahead and drop the bill, but we're going to work on it before we drop it to assuage those concerns.
So then do we vote on the final copy of the bill? Or was this my vote in committee? I'll just abstain. I mean, I'm sorry. I really don't like to vote on something that I haven't seen.
Right. I understand.
If you don't mind, I'd just like to switch to an abstention. Sorry to be difficult.
That's fine.
Okay.
And we'll converse to look at the changes, and if we need to bring everybody back together, we can. That's the only nice thing about doing all this Zoom stuff, is that we may need to have another meeting anyway. So yes, that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay. No problem. Okay, so we have the 4 bond bills before us. Is there a motion to accept or vote to make a motion to move forward with all 4?
I think we had the motion in second.
Okay.
In second already.
All right. Any other questions or concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. And so our last item of business is the number 4 on your list, the background check bill for all county employees. Everybody should have a copy of that. Are there any questions, any discussion on that bill? And I believe Delegate Shoemaker started that process for the bill. Would you like to clarify, based on, community concerns, why you decided to move forward with that particular legislation and brought it before the delegation?
All right, so basically, as I understand it, what we would be doing is adding Carroll County to some other counties that already have legislation in place to facilitate background checks for volunteers. Is that right, Molly?
Yes. So the bill that we have in right now is actually almost a mirror of what they've already done in Kent County to look back at their prospective employees. So that's kind of where we got the idea for the bill, and the county also agreed with that copy.
There you go.
Any discussion? Senator Hester?
Thank you. So I was just trying to understand a couple things. The first thing was, when does this get asked in the hiring process?
So I believe in, and I'm not an attorney, I'm going to defer, to Haven, but the way I read the draft, it sounds like it's at the process where the prospective employee is, basically has been given either maybe a verbal or a written offer, and it's usually subject to the background investigation. In my work in HR, that's typically how we do it. So the verbal or written offer has been given with the contingency of subject to passing the background check.
Right.
I think that's fair. So it's during the application process.
It's during the application process.
Okay.
So here's my concern. As a parent, we have to do everything possible to keep our kids safe, whether it's a volunteer or staff employee. My concern is the way the bill is drafted, it may conflict with the previous ban the box legislation, because I believe if you're asking these questions before the offer is in writing, and I could be wrong because I'm an engineer, not a lawyer either, but if you ask the question prior to the offer, that it goes against that other legislation. And so I don't know if we should get an attorney general's opinion or whatever, but that was my concern.
So my only comment, and just because I do work in HR, so, we could certainly, I would imagine, clarify the language so that it would be at the time the application process has already happened. When we just don't, the way that my process and my understanding is, this is at the point of time where there will be an offer or there is an offer given, whether verbally or in writing, and it usually is subject to contingencies. And when we're talking about kids, we had an issue in Carroll where we had volunteers, and it was, a terrible situation where this bill is trying to protect our children from that happening again. So, it could be that we could perfect the language and make it expressly clear that this would be subject to, a contingent offer would be subject to the background checks. So you're past the application point, you're to the point of offer, but then it would be subject to these safety measures of the background checks. That's my interpretation of the way that it should be. If it's not worded the best way, maybe we could work on that language.
Delegate Chairwoman Rose, I see Mike Fowler's hand up.
Yes, I'd
Oh,
see.
good. I just wanted to be sure you saw, because he might have, Mike, do you have some perspective on this? You can help us.
Yeah, I think the bill is silent on when that occurs. I think it just gives the county the authority to do it. So it wouldn't necessarily conflict with the other policy about the process of procedure. There are actually 10 counties that allow these background checks for employees, and 6 of those counties allow them for volunteers. And I'll mention that Howard is the only one of that group that requires a background check of all employees. So again, it's silent on when this occurs. So any other legislation that's in place that sets any timelines would obviously be in effect.
Mike, and this could be a question for Delegate Rose. I mean, I would assume, Mike, that the county can't do something in its HR policies that violates another state law. So if we allowed to do a background check, it would stand to reason that you would have to look and be sure whatever it was doesn't violate law. Right.
That is correct. In HR, you are subject to all of those laws, and it's pretty scrutinized as far as making sure. I mean, that's kind of the role of an HR director, to make sure you keep yourself out of a litigious situation.
I mean, I understand the question for sure. So I just,
Madam Chair, who would
Yes,
be doing,
delegates.
yes, who would be doing these background checks?
In the language of the bill, and I don't have it on let me pull it up. I believe it was being sent out through, hold on just a moment, I'll pull it up.
probably would be the same. Bill. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hold on, I just have to scroll to it. So it says the central repository of the state and national criminal history records check for employee or volunteer for Carroll County. And it is, you use these, the Criminal Justice Information System Central Repository of the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. And that is in lines, let's see, under 10-232, it's lines 2 through 4, it lists that there.
Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns? Is there a motion to move forward with this bill?
So moved.
Second.
Senator Hester has a question
Senator, yes.
or a comment. Yeah.
Sorry, are we going to try to clarify the timing piece? Because I would feel really comfortable as long as we're not, passing something that goes against a previous law.
It's dependent upon what everyone wants to do. However, I think Mr. Fowler brought up a good point that we are already subject to all state laws, and that would be different than how other counties have done it.
I'd be glad to ask for I'd like to move forward on the bill.
Yeah, me too.
Moving, I'd be happy to ask for an attorney general opinion to be sure the language is.
That's perfect, Senator. Thank you so much.
That's fine. But I agree with going and voting to introduce the bill, and then we'll, just so the public knows, by the way, when we talk about, we're introducing the bill, but we may fix something later. The process that works in the General Assembly is that a committee is not going to move a bill if they don't have a letter from the delegation. So we're voting to introduce the bill so that we can file it. I know some people, I'm sure we put this out publicly, so people could probably are watching, dozens, I'm sure. But just to be clear, when we say we're going to come back, it'll be, we can't do a bill, a committee will not pass a bill in the General Assembly unless they have a letter from our delegation saying that we've approved it. So just so everybody understands that process in the hundreds and thousands of people that I'm sure are watching.
Okay, so the motion on the floor, do we need to amend that, or do we move forward with the understanding that we will be amending it? Yes, Haven is shaking his head. Okay, so we had a motion and a second. All in favor in moving forward with this bill, subject to investigation of that language.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. I believe we have covered everything on our agenda. Does anyone else have anything for the good of the order?
The Senate bells are ringing, so
Okay,
I bid you, the Senate side will bid you adieu.
okay. Motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
moved.
Okay, thanks, everyone.